So we're going to move now into the internal rate of return. The internal rate of return is actually used, based on the CFO survey, is used more often than any of the other decision tools. It's used 76% of the time. So it's a very important tool to understand. The internal rate of return essentially determines the rate of return that an investment is offering. So internal rate of return, which we'll call IRR throughout, technically is the rate that makes the net present value of any particular project equal to zero. So essentially what you're doing is you're solving for a rate that sets that if you were to then compute the NPV, the NPV would be equal to zero. So it's kind of like the NPV, but it's dealing in returns, and we'll talk about what exactly that means in a little bit. So from a pure formulaic perspective, if you're taking the present value of all the future cash flows, which we're doing for the NPV, and you were to subtract the initial investment, that gives you your NPV. So here for the IRR, we're saying what rate will set the present value of all our future cash flows equal to the initial investment. And that will then, if we were to subtract the initial investment, the NPV would be equal to zero. Every project is going to have a required rate of return. If the IRR is above the required rate of return, you would accept the project. If the IRR is below the required rate of return, you would reject the project. And this required rate of return is set by the firm. We will talk more about how exactly that works, but in a nutshell, it's going to be partially based off of your weighted average cost of capital. So we'll go in and do the internal rate of return on our particular project that we're working on.